Hello and welcome to the Valley Sports Telegram Weekly Roundup. We are rounding up week 10 of the high school football season. Regular season is done. And there were some good games, some intriguing matchups. But coming into week 10, almost everything was settled. Not a lot of drama. But it still was a good week for football. And we've got a few things to break down. So before I get in, I'm going to introduce Kenny Hodges with me. We do not have Kaylee Harden this week, but she will be back. First, so Kenny, how you doing?
Doing excellent. We're wrapping up the regular season. We're barreling into the postseason this week coming up. League titles had pretty much been decided, but there's still some things worthy of kind of discussing about the directions of some of these teams as they now tackle the mission of trying to bring home a city championship. So I'm ready to roll. Let's go.
All right, let's roll right into this. So I'll go east to west. It's as easy as it gets. Starting out in the East Valley, Monroe visited Arleta, and that was a 26-8 victory for Arleta. They sealed an undefeated league season, and they are East Valley League champions again. Chavez was facing Grant and hold on, did I get this right? Did Chavez beat Grant?
No, Grant beat Chavez.
Yeah, I knew I had it wrong there. Okay, hold on, let me read back. Okay. All right, and so now we're gonna jump into the games from week 10 real quick, and we'll go east to west as we have been doing for the past few weeks. Monroe went into Arleta, and Arleta came out on top, sealing an undefeated East Valley League season. That was a 28-6 final. Chavez faced off against Grant, and Grant surprised a few of us. It was a 37-6 win for the Lancers there. And the final game in the East Valley League last week was North Hollywood against Pauley on the road. And the host Parrots came out on top. It was a 20-16 final there. Over in the Valley Mission League, Panorama beat up on Canoga. And again, we've said this all year about Canoga. They will be back. Watch out. It was a 42-0 victory for the Pythons in their playoff tune-up. San Fernando beat Reseda 33-6. And that's another one where the regions are coming. Just got to give it some time. The final game in the Valley Mission for us, Kennedy against Van Nuys. It was a 42-15 final there. The Golden Cougars are your Valley Mission champions, and they finish an undefeated league season. Over in the West Valley League, Chatsworth was hosting Granada, and that was a 48-28 final there. You got the Highlanders on top. Birmingham put up a number on Taft, 83-6 final there. Yes, 83-6. Birmingham seals another undefeated season in the West Valley League. They are your West Valley League champions. And our VST game of the week, Cleveland was the designated road team against El Camino. This game was played at Cleveland. It was quite a matchup. Cleveland came out on top 34-20. I'll have more on that later. I've got a few Southern section matchups. Village Christian finished their season with a win, 45-12 over Valley Christian. They should have a playoff matchup coming up. Heritage went to Ontario Christian, and Ontario Christian did what they've done to everybody in league this year. It was a 47-15 victory there. Burroughs and Burbank faced off in their annual rivalry match. It was homecoming for Burbank, but 48-13 final there in favor of the Bears. And the last one, CV sealed up a playoff spot with a 20-14 victory over Arcadia. And we got to wish them luck in the playoffs. They got a bit of a trek in their first week. But that's what we have for that roundup. Kenny, what do you got for us?
Just some quick news and notes. Because we knew that a lot of things were sort of locked up coming into week 10, not as much news or notes to come out of this week as we kind of barrel into the postseason. But starting in the East Valley, our leader with that 26-8 victory over Monroe finishes 6-0, perfect season in the East Valley. Their second time accomplishing this in the last 3 years. They did it in 2021. A season in which the Mustangs actually went on to pull an upset in the first round of the D1 playoffs on the road at Carson. Maybe this team has a little bit of that magic and mojo coming their way come postseason time. Grant beating Chavez 26-8, a little bit of a surprise score here. We thought Chavez would win that game and sort of go into the postseason with a little bit of momentum, but Grant kind of showed you that as the season has kind of gone on, those young players have started to kind of come around a little bit. This was maybe one of their better efforts, if not their best effort of the season. Armin Hovsepian led the team through the air and with his legs, and Grant's going to move on into the D3, the Division III playoffs with a little bit of momentum. The last
wasn't that 37? Sorry, wasn't that 37-16?
Was it 37-16?
Yeah, Monroe and Arleta was 28-6.
Okay,
26-8. Sorry.
Grant's victory over Chavez that ends their 3-game losing streak in the East Valley League, and that win over Chavez now sends them into the postseason with a little bit of momentum. Big night by quarterback Armin Hovsepian. They're going to need him if they're going to make a run in the postseason. In the East Valley, a game I'll dive into a little bit more. I was there in person later on. Poly taking the win over North Hollywood 20-16. Actually, in a game that was pretty mundane. The first 3 quarters kind of really ramped up and had a lot of drama in the end. But congratulations to Poly, finishing second in the East Valley at 5-1. It was their first win over North Hollywood since 2019. They have been badly outscored 156-20 in their last 3 meetings. So this game took on a little bit more significance for the upperclassmen for that Poly team, and then you saw the excitement in the post game. So good for them. Moving on to the Valley Mission, Panorama managed to finish the season on a high note. They lost those games to San Fernando and Kennedy back-to-back when they had designs on winning league, but it's nice to see them kind of get it back on track heading into the postseason. And like I said, the story with Canoga is that's a team that's sort of kind of in rebuild mode. They'll be better the next time we see them when next season rolls around. San Fernando, congratulations to those San Fernando seniors completing a turnaround season, finishing second in the Valley Mission, 9 wins on the season. And a remarkable accomplishment for this program from what everything they sort of have went through the year before. We'll see if they can carry that momentum now as playoffs get rolling. And obviously Kennedy with their win over Van Nuys, not a surprise there. They finished an unbeaten season in the Valley Mission, something that the team had was their first goal of the year was to get that elusive league championship. They have it in their back pocket now. They'll try to go back-to-back with city titles come playoffs. And in the West Valley, and like we talked about, Birmingham, 83-6 over Taft. It's the largest margin of victory over an opponent since they beat Taft by 66 in 2020. I think it says a little something about where the two programs were this week. Taft had the flu sort of kind of run through the team, so they didn't play a lot of players. And Birmingham obviously wanted to go into the postseason on a high note. So, listen, you still got to go out there and play. And they put the pedal to the metal. And they wrap up another unbeaten West Valley. Congratulations to them. Cleveland beating Elko. They lock up a third-place finish in the West Valley League with that victory. I know they probably had designs of being more of a challenger to the top 2 teams, but even still, a win is a win. A win gives you momentum heading into postseason, where that gauntlet in D1 is going to be tough. And then lastly, Granada and Chatsworth played an entertaining game, 48-28. Plenty of touchdowns to go around. Darrell Stanley saved one of his best performances of the season for last with 264 all-purpose yards in the game, running the ball, kick returns. Granada looks like they're going to be a tough out. And just a couple notes in to finish up in the southern section. Congratulations to Sierra Canyon for an undefeated season, going undefeated in the Mission League. That is tough to do. That is a tough league to play in when you have the likes of Bishop Amat and Gardena Serra and Chaminade and Notre Dame's to deal with. So congratulations to them. Village finishing on a high. Hopefully they can carry that into the postseason. I think they will with the quarterback that they have. Heritage had a tough one to wrap up, but we'll see. The postseason is an opportunity to sort of wipe the slate clean, and we'll see what they have from there. And congratulations to Burroughs with that win over Burbank, a 9-win season, a Pacific Upper Championship. We'll see if they can carry that momentum as well. Those are my news and notes for the final week of the regular season.
And it was, like we said, a nice little bow on the season. Now, with kind of what we're looking at, the unexpected and the bit of the surprises that we've seen, that poly program was one that we didn't have much information on coming in. We knew that they had lost some key pieces, some key seniors. And so for us, that was a big question mark. And they came out and showed us that, no, this is a team that was going to be serious this year. Finished 5-1 in league, second place. So Kenny, you were there. Let's dive into this one.
Yeah, this was an interesting matchup, just for the sake of it's two teams that we sort of had ideas of where we thought they would finish coming into the year, and it hasn't kind of played out that way. We thought Poly would be struggling more towards the bottom end of the East Valley. They were, quite frankly, outside of our leader, the most consistent and stronger side in the East Valley, short of the undefeated Mustangs. North Hollywood was a team that was very close to winning the East Valley crown last year. Yes, they lost some players, but they still brought back a lot of key players and impact players in positions that we thought that might help them get over the top and beat our leader and beat some of these teams that we expected to be near the top. And injuries, depth issues sort of kind of plagued them. So it was a team sort of heading in two different directions. But coming out of this game, it feels like both of these teams are sort of headed in the direction you want to see programs headed into, going into one-and-done situations in the postseason. So right out of the gate, it felt like Poly might be in a little bit of trouble. They fumbled deep in their own end to begin the game. But as we've kind of come to expect from Poly this season, their defense sort of dug in and held North Hollywood to a field goal. Poly continued to have ball security issues early on. There was just something about the quarterback, the center quarterback exchange. They just couldn't kind of figure it out. I don't know if it was nerves. I don't know what it was, but because it was a big night, they just kind of couldn't stop putting the ball on the ground, and it sort of kind of hurt the flow of their offense. It wasn't until a big run by number 4, Justin Johnson, to kind of get Poly out of the end zone and sort of kind of allowed them to breathe a little bit, that they started to settle into the game. Another follow that was followed up by another run, a nice run by the quarterback Angel Diaz to move the ball in NoHo territory, and then big Armando Juarez, number 81, had one of the more spectacular runs you'd see, basically taking an end around, breaking a couple of tackles and dragging 3 guys into the end zone to put Poly on the board halfway through the first quarter. NoHo then fumbles the ball, gives it back to Poly. Defense is kind of settled in, and then it kind of became a defensive struggle in the second quarter where Poly would move the ball. They fumbled. NoHo would get it back, and NoHo put the ball on the ground, gave it back to Poly. So by the time we got to halftime, it was still a 7-3 score. Headed into the second half, you knew there would be some adjustments by both teams. What a curious note was Jalen Burke didn't play in the first half. I wasn't sure. I wasn't able to confirm with the coaching staff if that was punishment or whatever it was, but he didn't play the first half. But when he did get in the second half, in typical Jalen Burke fashion, a guy who is pocket size, to say the least, gets in on the first kick return of the second half and knocks a guy 7 yards out of bounds, letting you know what time he was going to be on when he eventually did get put in the game, which he did midway through the third quarter. They started to use him on offense, and actually that's when you saw North Hollywood's offense sort of kick into a different gear. Once they started putting the ball in his hand and started utilizing his speed. Pauly managed to get the only touchdown of the third quarter, another big Armando Juarez run, a 33-yarder on a quick slant that extended Pauly's lead to 14-3 heading into the fourth quarter. And that's when this game really started to take a turn, with both teams started just landing haymaker blows. Burt started to finally break some runs. He gets them down inside the 20. And then they break loose. North Hollywood gets on the board with a touchdown. They don't get the 2-point conversion. They make it 14-9. Pauly gets the ball in the next possession. They go 3 and out, punt it back to North Hollywood. The Huskies, on the first play, when they get the ball back, hit an 80-yard bomb to take the lead 16-14. Pauly gets the ball back, and on their first play after the kickoff, go 88 yards on a catch and run to go back in front 20-16.
Sorry, I gotta ask you. You're telling me North Hollywood had an 80-yard passing touchdown?
Yes, they did. And North Hollywood actually hit an 80-yard passing touchdown.
That's great. That's great. I love Arlauskas. I always thought he had potential to grow in it, and he's a junior this year. So
yes,
cool.
And to be honest, he played a tremendous game because of the fact that one of the hidden secrets here in the Valley, or especially in the East Valley, that even more so than our leader, the best defensive line this year has been Pauly's. Those kids up front really, really get after it. And they had Arlauskas on the run all night whenever they were attempting to throw the ball. And essentially, once Jalen Burke was able to sort of kind of start to chip away at Pauly's defense, now you're talking about that box is loading up with 8-9 guys, and then Arlauskas just hits perfect pass over the middle to Markai Shepard, who is equally as fast as Jalen Burke is when you put the ball in that kid's hands, and he was gone. There was no catching him. So that was a bit of a wrinkle that you hoped you would see. We thought we'd see more of from North Hollywood this year, being able to capitalize on the fact that teams were going to load up their fronts to stop Burke. And it worked beautifully. It worked perfectly for him. But then Pauly came right back with a Diaz touchdown. Not Diaz, Edwin K., the St. John transfer. Came up big, came up huge for him. Made a catch on an out route on the sideline, shook 2 guys off, and he was off to the races up the sideline for 88 yards. Boom. They took the lead right back. NoHo got the ball back. They went 3 and out, punted it to Pauly, and then Pauly was able to run the clock out from there and sew up a nice, tidy 20-16 win. Those kids were excited after the game. Like I said, those seniors in the program who had been there, all they've known is getting punched in the face by North Hollywood the last few years. So when they got to lift the rivalry trophy, they were very excited. The coaching staff was excited, and it's off to the races for Pauly. Like I said, they've landed themselves in, a tough spot. We'll get into when we break down the brackets later. But still an awesome accomplishment for that program, finishing the year 5-1 in the East Valley when no one had them finishing that high. And the best part about the program is there's still a lot of potential. They have a lot of young players. They're not graduating much out of that program, and they've got kids like Armando Juarez, who this is his first year playing organized football, who was incredible for that team at times this year. So the sky's the limit. Pauly has a bright future. And congratulations to them, and congratulations to North Hollywood. It's been a tough year for them. They had to forfeit a game earlier this year because they just didn't have the numbers. They were so beat up. But this team has kept fighting. And they actually looked sharp in the second half of this game, the way you want to look heading into the postseason. They could be a team because of the type of talent they have, what we expected. If things break right, they can make a real deep run in the postseason. So it was good to see both teams kind of playing well. And I'm excited about their prospects come next week.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to watch them both in the playoffs. One is in D2, one is in D3. It'll be quite the challenge. Both of them, they're both in interesting spots. Now, speaking of interesting spots, you had the Road Warrior El Camino Regents, and they had their senior night hosted at Cleveland High School, designated home team, Cleveland designated road. It's been that interesting spot for El Camino all year. And one of the other things that's kind of been with El Camino all year is they've been plagued by mistakes that they know they're better than. And this game was no different. Now, I will say, and I said this off before we started recording, both coaches walked out of that game with a lot to take in and clean up over film. Both had issues with mental mistakes that were being made. Both were unhappy with certain aspects of the game. Now, before I dig in, my take in what I saw, if Cleveland plays a cleaner game, they blow out El Camino. If El Camino plays a cleaner game, they sneak out a win. If they both played a cleaner game, I think we kind of have a similar outcome, where it's a 1-2 score game. Though ultimately, I do think Cleveland has the game breakers to edge out. So that's kind of my take on where I think they were at. But this game had plenty of moments of excitement and intrigue, and I'll get right into it. Cleveland wasted no time trying to get things going. They drove the field on the very first possession, only to have the ball be popped out and intercepted. It was a ball was popped out. I think they were in the red zone. Might have been inside the 10, and ball was popped out, recovered by El Camino, and they went off. Both defenses really kind of did their thing after that. Scoreless first quarter, and then El Camino had the ball. Correction, I'm a little jumpy right now. Cleveland had the ball at the end of the quarter, and they were marching the field, and quarter ends. El Camino defense looks like it might be in a decent spot, but as always, who comes through for Cleveland in the clutch when they're looking for it? Mr. Corey Hall has a ridiculous one-handed touchdown grab in the back of the end zone. And this is one of those catches where I'm like, I think very, very few receivers in the Valley. I'm not going to go outside. I'll go outside of who we've seen. I don't think there's very many receivers who can make this catch. But for Corey, this is kind of routine. And I sent you a clip of the catch, and you said, this is not the most spectacular catch we've seen him make. We've seen him do a lot more wonderful things that also turn into touchdowns. But again, this play Great catch, toes in bounds, touchdown. Cleveland takes the lead, and they get the ball back. Now, if I have my notes correct, I think it was off the interception. And this one turns into a 33-yard pass into the end zone. And now they're up by 2 scores. The kick was interesting because I wrote kick good on the kick, but it was just wide from what was happening. Now, I have to give love to that receiver. He played a great game. His name's Usman Ajayi. He had an all-out kind of performance. Caught all 3 targets, 1 for 30 yards, plus the 33-yard touchdown, and that was a heck of a catch. So, great play. Again, giving love to Usman Ajayi. He was great when they found him in space. First half ends 13-0 in favor of Cleveland. El Camino had a chance to march the field and get points on the board before halftime. They get down. They're pretty deep in Cavaliers territory. End up going backwards. There's a penalty. And they have a pretty long field goal attempt as clock expires. Kick falls short just a bit. And so 13-0. El Camino gets the ball to start the second half. They go down the field and score. And this was Kevin Hawkins, quarterback keeper at the goal line. He's in. So they're 1 score. And the thought is, hey, this is great. They had the ball for almost half the quarter at this point. So you're thinking if the defense can kind of hold, that offense can continue to milk the clock and score and kind of, get things going. Again, if it's 13-7, you're thinking we just need to get the ball back, milk the clock, get a touchdown, extra point. We have the lead, right? But not the case. Cleveland is able to march the field on their next possession, and they score early in the fourth quarter. And now this one kick was good. Now it's 20-7. And this is where it gets crazy. This is where it gets insane. They scored. They kick off. El Camino benefits from a couple personal foul penalties. They have great field possession, and they scored. So it was a beautiful touchdown pass by Hawkins, 20-13, and this is just 28 seconds after the Cavs had made it 20-7. This is where that El Camino defense is going to hold. You have 4th down and long. I think it was like 4th and 18. It was very long. Drop back to pass. A deep ball to Corey Hall. And this is another one of those. He goes up and he reaches for it. I thought when the ball was released, it was too long, incomplete. Corey reels this thing in and is gone for 60 yards. It's now 27-13. That's a backbreaker. You have a 4th and 18, and you can't get off the field. But there's not much you can do there in that situation. And then ensuing play, El Camino has the ball, trying to march the field. Corey Hall strikes again. This time it's a 45-yard pick six. Catches the ball on one side of the field, works his way around to the other side, and he's gone 45 yards for the score. Now, El Camino credit, they did not give up. They worked the ball down the field, and Hawkins broke a 25-yard keeper. And this is the thing. This kid was at the goal line, and he could have taken the first down. He could have tried to do something. He went in, and he took a hit. This is a hard hit. and he got over the goal line. Great play. El Camino has something special in this kid. But that was it. That was the final. Cleveland got the ball back and ran out the clock. 34-20. Cavaliers win. Great momentum going in. But again, both of these coaches kind of look back and they want more. They want to clean up, and they had the week to do it going into playoffs. It'll be interesting to see kind of where they stand.
Yeah, just the only thing I'll add to what you've said here is on the Elko side, there's a reason why this team is still D1, even though their record is 3-7. It's because they play a tough schedule, and they are a very, very, very talented team. The consistency is just not there because they're young at quarterback, and they're just it's still a process, and it's still a process in the making. And the consistency just isn't there at times. The mistakes they make at times that sort of put them behind the 8 ball. Yeah, they were able to dig themselves out of it against Taft. They were able to hold on against Chatsworth, but this has sort of kind of been the issue with Elko. You're not necessarily sure what you're going to get from them week to week. You know they're talented. You know they got guys that can beat you. They got big play guys on this team, but they're just not sure. You're just not sure if they're going to be able to get it done. And the same thing with Cleveland. Cleveland has tended to play to the level of competition at times this year, and which is extremely frustrating when you have an all-world talent like Corey Hall. Feels like you could be wasting that if you're not actually putting together 4 quarters of clean football. But fortunately for them, they've been able to kind of just out-talent that inconsistency at times. They're going to have to pull it together to get in the postseason to go where they ultimately want to go. But these are 2 teams that are very talented. You wouldn't be surprised if either one of these teams found themselves in the D1 semi, because that's the kind of talent they have. But we'll see where it all ends up.
And real quick before we go into our wrap up, I want to give major appreciation to one player on that Cleveland team. He is a sophomore. He's one of these players they're going to be looking to build around, and that's running back Cameron Green. CJ was all I kept hearing. He carried the ball 10 times, tied with Donovan Powell for most carries, second most carries. David Maciel led the Cavaliers, and this was a very balanced running attack. Maciel had 11 carries, but he was the one who lost the fumble early and was kind of stuffed for the most part. And then you look at the next, Powell was kind of held under wraps by that Elko defense for the most part. But CJ, he was the one. He had a 21-yarder early, a 15-yarder, and in between that, he would kind of get stuffed. But every time they went to him, he seemed to make something positive happen. That kid, I think they got something special in that kid. And sorry, I said sophomore. He's only a freshman.
Mm-hmm.
So he's only going to get a little bigger and better. So that's a player to keep an eye on. And, we've said this before, El Camino has some youngsters, some underclassmen who have stepped up. And, led by Hawkins. And there were definitely some players, and I'm going to name drop them because they deserve to have their names, said. Conan Mallett is a junior, and he kind of held the run game in place for them. And it really was fun to watch. So that is that for the game of the week. We were not as out and about as we would have liked to, but for me, from what I saw, those were all the honorable mentions I just named. Corey Hall had the standout performance. I don't know how many times we can say that. We said that a lot last year, said it a lot this year. But when Cleveland needed him to make a play, he made a play. 2 receiving touchdowns and an interception return. So for me, Corey Hall gets that nod. And we finished week 10.
Yeah, the only other name I'll add for honorable mention, who deserves a mention for player of the week, Darrell Stanley. Granada came into the last week of the regular season, obviously had already locked up second place in the West Valley, but was still tenuous. They were in a group of about 5 or 6 teams that could make their way. The top 3 or 4 teams were pretty much set for open, but depending on what 1 or 2 of those teams did in week 10, Granada was in that mix that couldn't really afford a slip up. They needed to handle business in week 10 if they wanted to go open, or else because if they didn't look good or if they would have slipped up against Chatsworth, they probably would have been back where they were last year as a top seed in D1, which is not what they wanted. They wanted to compete and open in the postseason. And Darrell kind of did what you needed to do. One of the things that we've sort of criticized or critiqued a little bit for Granada was who was going to be that guy that sort of stepped into the role that Dijon had last year for Granada and be their leader. And you saw it this week with Darrell sort of kind of putting the team on his back, 264 all-purpose yards, dominating the game in all facets, and carrying his team into the open division, and they're going to need him to do that when they get there. So I'll throw his name in the hat too for player of the week.
Well deserved. Very, very well deserved. And with that, thank you guys for watching. We're gearing up. You guys, if you're watching this first, there is going to be a bracket breakdown. Kenny and I are going to go over all the brackets from open to 8-man, everything in between. We're going to take a look at the Valley team and how they're doing. We might even have something to say about some of the other city teams, but that's coming. Keep an eye on that. It's been a hell of a season. Thank you guys for watching, and continue to just share the love, because that's why we do what we do.
Yeah, and for us at the Telegram, we want to send special thank yous to all the ADs, the coaches, the players, the team, the schools, these facilities, all the people who have allowed us access, been allowing us to be on the sideline, provided things for us when we've needed them, because that's the thing to cover. It takes a village to kind of do what we do in terms of actually being out here on a week-to-week basis, being on the sidelines and giving you in-depth conversation about what's going on with our kids here. And in order for that to happen, we need the help of the coaches and administrators who allow us to have access to these student athletes every week. So, as we wrap up, we want to say thank you to them. We want to say thank you to all the supporters who have supported us and also gone out to these stadiums and supported these kids. Now we move into postseason. We'll have another where we wrap up the entire season and put a bow on everything later in the next few weeks. But with that being said, thank you to everybody. And thank you to everybody who supports us. Continue to look out for these. We're going to continue to do the roundups as we head into winter and spring sports as well. And thank you guys for watching. Peace.